Hello everybody! JGC Anime here, and today we're to review The Dangers in My Heart Season 2. So without further ado, let's just hop right into this. So, what is the story to kick off The Dangers in My Heart Season 2? Basically, now the school year has almost come to a close and the new school year is about to begin, we find Ichikawa and Yamada slowly growing closer together, and that is where the story kicks off, just them slowly growing closer together. But yeah, it's not a great way of describing the story, but that's just that's just how it starts. So yeah, let's hop into some spoiler-free thoughts. So, in terms of spoiler-free thoughts, I feel like Season 2 is one of the best romance anime I have ever watched. Like, hands down, I watch so many romance animes out there. You know, we got Tanakawa, Love's War, the more basic ones. I've also watched Toradora, but that was a while ago, and I didn't really like it when I watched it the first time, so I don't know if I would like rewatching it a second time. But then you have other shows like My Love Story with Yamada-kun, as well as My Dress Up Darling, shows like those. I've watched so many rom-coms, and yet there are so few that can really hit me as hard as this show has, especially with Season 2. Season 2 has got to be one of my favorite experiences with the romance genre of anime ever. Like, I don't know how it does it, but it keeps me on the edge of my seat in the anticipation to see what type of things Yamada and Ichikawa will do, and I just really love how they develop all the characters, the world, and Season 2 just adds so much to it, just a whole other layer. There's a bunch of new characters introduced. There's just so many things here that I love about this season of the show. Where Season 1 was one of those shows where it's like, okay, it starts off kind of alright, but then as it progresses, it just gets better and better. Right from the get-go, this season is just top tier. Like, I have watched the season and I love it. I love every single aspect of it, well, besides one character who we'll talk about later on. But other than that, I absolutely love this season, and I'm amazed at how much they outdid themselves compared to the last season. But the last season was just kind of just a really fun time. I liked it a lot. I really enjoyed it. This season of The Dangers in My Heart truly made me realize how much I freaking love this show, and really makes me want to pick up the manga, which I probably will. But I really loved it, and I enjoy how there's not just a connection between Ichikawa and Yamada that's slowly growing closer together throughout the season, but there's also a lot of character growth from different characters, not just Ichikawa and Yamada, but other characters as well, as we get to see a lot of character growth and improvement. And I love how it doesn't really feel like a lot of other rom-coms do, where other rom-coms, they usually, by the time I get to the end of them, I'm either just not that interested anymore, or it's just kind of all right, nothing too special. This is the first time I ever sat through a whole season of a romance anime and loved every single second. Like, I loved everything about this season. It is way better than the first one. It does such a good job at doing everything right. From the different stories that they tell, to the animation definitely being up from the first season, to so many other parts, with the opening theme being one of my favorite opening themes of the Winter 2024 season, which is kind of hard to pull off considering how many banger openings came out during that season. But this was really good with its opening. Everything about it was just such a vibe. It was so good. I loved everything about it. I enjoyed so many aspects to everything. It's really hard not to describe it without spoilers, besides just saying that I really freaking love this season. This season was incredible. Like, I cannot think of many other romances which really hit that same peak. Even shows like Love is War, which I consider to be one of my favorite rom-coms just ever, has not hit the same excitement and peak that this season gave me, which is very weird to say considering how much I love that show. But the fact of the matter is, this show, with its second season, did something I never thought was possible. It made me just kind of fall in love with a rom-com. It was no longer one of those, oh, it's overhyped type rom-coms like so many others out there. Like I mentioned before, My Dress Up Darling and My Love Story with Yamada-kun. I have heard so many people hype those shows up, say they're the best thing ever, the most incredible romance ever, and then I watch them and think, they're okay. They're alright. They're fine. Nothing too spectacular. They're just fine. And then you watch stuff like The Dangers in My Heart, a show which has no right to be as amazing as it is. And you just have the second season, which tops everything the first season does by a mile, and it's incredible. I did not think I would get this emotionally invested in these characters, and just seeing them progress, not just the connection between Yamada and Ichikawa, but also a lot of other character progression as well. It just overall, I love how everything is tied neatly together into a perfect ending to the season that I'll talk about in the spoiler section, but it's beautiful. I loved it. And it's just, I have not been this excited in watching an anime for so long, at least in the rom-com genre. Like, whenever I'm watching a rom-com, I'm usually just staring like blank face, just kind of watching, taking in the information, and calling it a day. However, whenever I'm watching the show, I'm constantly pausing, just getting all giddy, and just getting excited. I never thought I could be so emotionally invested in just two people falling in love. I never thought that was possible, but this show pulled it off. It did a phenomenal job with keeping me invested in these characters and really getting me just interested in what type of setting they're in and their lives. But yeah, that's all I can really say without diving into spoilers, because there's a lot I want to talk about in terms of spoilers. So we're just going to the spoiler section now. Here's the types of the spoilers, and if you have seen the show, I recommend sticking around and hear my thoughts. But if you haven't, you should skip to the end so you don't get any spoilers. But if you have seen the season, I recommend sticking around and hear my thoughts. But again, if you haven't, you should skip to the end so you don't get any spoilers. But yeah, I'm going to cut up for 5 and I'm going to edge the spoiler section. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. So I want to get this out of the way first. The one very minor, teeny tiny negative I have with this season, and it is such a small negative that it doesn't even register on the bar, and that is the character of Adachi. He is one of the most cringeworthy and painful characters to watch on screen, and even so, I love how he develops as a character ever so slightly near the end of the season, where he just talks with Ichikawa, and it's just this very interesting interaction where Adachi is just like, I'm in love with Yamada, and then Ichikawa's like, how can you say that? You literally don't even know the girl that well. All you know is that she's pretty. You don't actually understand and know her like I do. And it's just moments like that where making me think, okay, Adachi's not that bad of a character. Then he immediately starts to simp for Ichikawa's sister, and then I'm like, okay, now he's just kind of cringe again. But other than that, that is the very most minor gripe I have. Adachi is just the one annoying character, though he does seem to kind of get a chance with one of the girls. It's like it's hinted at that maybe something between him and Moeko is kind of forming, but that's kind of more of just a hilarious coincidence where he almost makes a cringe decision. However, after making a mistake while trying to set up the cringe-worthy thing he was about to pull off, it makes him look like he's actually a reasonable dude, and that makes it so that now she's kind of interested in it. It's pretty funny. But other than that, Adachi is the most small gripe I have with this season because everything else is so freaking phenomenal. The way that all the characters talk with each other and interact, because it's not even just about Yamada and Ichikawa. While they are the primary focus of the season, we get to see a lot of other characters as well, such as Hara and Kanzaki, who ended up going on this small little almost like double date with Yamada and Ichikawa. And it's so funny because the two groups ended up accidentally running into each other's partner before the date really got started. And it's just this funny thing where they all get jealous of each other, and then it just literally ends with Ichikawa shouting at Kanzaki about how Yamada belongs to him and not Kanzaki, even though Kanzaki wasn't actually interested. But, you know, he was basically saying how Yamada was his, and then Yamada happens to walk in exactly at the moment as he declared that, and it was so funny. Oh man, but it was just moments like that that really brought this show into a new field of awesomeness. It's just, there are so many things here that I love, especially with how the new cast members can be pretty funny, if a bit annoying at times, but still very funny. Like characters such as Nico and Kana, they are a bit more on the I don't mind them scale. In fact, we barely know anything about Nico. She's only really had like 2 appearances so far, so I can't really judge what type of person she is. Yeah, she's just like this weird girl who's obsessed with Yamada to an extent, but it's more in a goofy tone. It's not played in like a dangerous tone. It's played in a goofy tone. But then there's Kana, who's just like trying to force Yamada and Ichikawa together. It kind of annoyed the heck out of me at times, but at the same time, it was so funny that I just ignored it because it was just too funny. It's that hit that right amount of painful to watch, but also hilarious to watch, which is why I didn't really feel bothered by it at all. And just there's so many other things here that I really like. One other thing I want to talk about is such as the elements of like the chocolate storyline, which is more so just an introduction to Yamada's family. And it's just, I think her family is awesome. You just have her mom who is so strict on the outside, but then you can see she's actually quite caring. So, and there's also her dad, who apparently is quite a well-renowned chef, and he's just also loves playing video games and asks for Ichikawa if he wants to play video games and all that. It's just stuff like that is awesome. Yamada's family is great. Things like that really remind me why this show is so great, especially with how later on, when Ichikawa wants to return the chocolate after Yamada gives him some, he ends up also wrapping a little keychain, not really keychain, like a little bracelet thing around, or not around, but inside of the chocolate, and it's just so nice. There's stuff like that, and how he admits that she looks really cute afterwards. It's just, that stuff just ended up making me feel, I know it sounds stupid to say this, but really giddy. Like it made me so happy to see it. It made me so excited to see how things progress, and I just really enjoy how, even though this could have gone so cringeworthy, like it could have gone cliche or it could have gone stupid at some point, yet it never does. Especially with how, rather than just focusing entirely on the romantic aspect, which probably would have gotten really dull over time, they're also developing other things as well, such as the fact that Ichikawa, as a person, has very low self-esteem. He doesn't like to look at himself positively. he tends to think of himself in a negative light a lot of the time. But then in this season, he learns to love himself thanks to his imaginary version of himself through the vision of a manga character. And it's just so freaking funny, but also amazing. Because you get to see Ichikawa grow so much this season, having him go from somebody who's meek and unable to really express how he feels to him just straight up telling Yamada how he feels. There's just so many things here I love, especially with how Ichikawa's growth ties not just his feelings for Yamada, but also just to himself, where he has to learn to love himself, and that's really nice. And just, I couldn't help but say that I freaking love this season. Like, this season did such an amazing job keeping me invested in these characters, this world. Everyone's interactions are so nice, and there are so many moments of this that left me just shocked that they pulled them off. Like how after Yamada loses her phone and Ichikawa's worried about her, he decides to visit her home to call her from there to see if she's okay. And when he does that, at the end of that whole conversation, once they talk on the phone, then Yamada ends up confessing to her mother that she likes Ichikawa, and Ichikawa ends up confessing to Yamada's dad that he likes Yamada. And it's just moments like that that I never see coming, because I'm not used to rom-coms progressing naturally instead of either super rushed or super dragged out. Just the fact that they do stuff like that really hit me in the feels, and it made me feel a bit upset about the idea that we might not get a confession this season, because I was thinking, oh man, I don't think we're gonna get a confession this season, because a lot of romances do that. They'll drag out the confession to the very end. But then we get to the finale, the final episode of this season, where after Ichikawa learns that Yamada wants to go to an audition, but she wanted to be at the school field trip they were currently at for Ichikawa, I was thinking, oh man, he's just gonna have her go back, and then that's just where the season's gonna end. There's not gonna be much of anything really. It's just gonna be wrapping up there, and their connection will continue to grow in the third season. But no, right there, putting on a mask that Yamada was using to hide her expression, because he's not able to face her with his expression, he just looks at her and just tells her to go, and then it takes off the mask and strips, tells her, I like you. And it's just like, he actually said it! He actually flippin' said it! And when that happened, I was just like, oh my goodness. Like, I'm not really someone who cares too much for confessions a lot in rom-com anime, because they're either so dragged out or so rushed. Like, when I was watching My Love Story with Yamada-kun, I just felt like that entire season was just kind of a whole lot of nothing. So when stuff like that happens later on, I'm just like, oh, okay. And then you have stuff like Love is War, where they do eventually get to a confession. And when that happens, I thought maybe I'd be like, oh my gosh, yes, it finally happened. Instead, I was like, oh, okay, that happened. Yay! Anyways, like, I feel like shows like that just have this weird situation with me where I feel like they could be better. Like, they never seem to strike that perfect balance where it's just right. Where when those confessions happen, I'm just fully into it. And this episode doesn't even end there, where after all of that, then Ichikawa comes back from the trip, and Yamada has him meet back in the library, which was the normal meeting spot, where then she ends up confessing to him, asking if he will go out with her. And he just says yes, and it's just, oh man, I love it. I love it so much. I can't think of any other rom-com that has gotten me this excited over a confession of love for two characters, like where they confess to each other. Like, I cannot think of any other rom-com that has made me this excited to see this happen. Like, it astounds me, because I've watched, as I said, I've watched so many of these shows, and normally I don't care that much for them. But yet here, for some reason, this show manages to strike that perfect zone where I want to see them get together, but I also want to see them develop as characters, and it strikes that balance so perfectly that I just can't help but be so excited when the confession finally happened. And it was beautiful. It is legitimately one of the most beautiful anime I've ever watched. The story, it really hit me hard. It really hit me in the feels, and I love it way more than I should. It's beautiful. It is a story that I think I'm going to love for a long time to come, and I would love to see more. I'm aware that, the confession happened, so that means it should be over, right? Well, yes and no, since apparently the manga is still going to this day, and now they're trying to do stuff with their relationship. I don't know exactly what. I'm not that far, and I say not that far in the manga, but I've never started the manga, but I do want to now. After that confession and all of that, I'm really, really planning to pick up the manga. I probably am going to pick it up because I want to read what happens next. I really want to. I want to see how this plays out because it was beautiful. It has got to be one of my favorite anime just of all time. It's right up there with shows like Odd Taxi and The Eminence in Shadows, just some of my favorite shows of their respective genres. And I freaking loved it, man. It's hard not to talk about how much I love this show because it is legitimately one of the best shows I have ever seen. Like, season 2 topped season 1 in every single way. The character interactions, even the stuff with Hara and Kanzaki, which is kind of just slowly progressing in the background, is really nice. There's so many other elements here, and I just think that this show is just perfect in so many ways. It's just perfect. Like, this is the most invested I've ever been in a rom-com, and I would love to see a 3rd season just to see where things go from here, since it is just beautiful. I love it so much. But yeah, that's all I really have to say. So we're at the conclusion of this video. What are my final thoughts? Overall, I love The Dangers of My Heart season 2. It is an incredible story. It's just such an incredible season overall. And I can't think of many other rom-coms that could possibly get close to topping this. Like, I've seen so many, and this is the first one where I can legitimately say that I really freaking love this rom-com. It is beautiful. It is such a well-told story. It knows how to pace things. It knows how to really just dive into these characters and this world. And I just think it's beautiful. It is incredible. And that's why I give The Dangers of My Heart season 2 a 10 out of 10. I think that this was just incredible, and I would love to rewatch it. I would love to just see where things progress, and that's why I'm hoping, just really hoping we get a season 3, because this show is just phenomenal. And yeah, that's all I really have to say, and thank y'all for watching. If you're new to the JGC Anime channel, don't forget to subscribe. I also get anime fans to the channel, and I will see you all around. Peace!